Hi there. So to begin, I'd like to apologize for taking so long to get this presentation to you. I'm new to screen recording and well, I guess this means I developed a new skill, but it's taken me quite a few takes in order to get to this presentation for you. Thanks again for understanding my unfortunate circumstances last week, and I hope that this will make up for that. So as you know, I dissected the blue crab, which scientifically is known as the Calanectus sapidus. And translated in Italian from Italian to English, that means the savory, beautiful swimmer. Pretty neat, considering the fact that this is the most commonly eaten crab in the U.S. and especially on the East Coast. The taxonomic classification, nothing really unexpected. Notable that these are in the phylum Arthropoda, which is home to about 75% of the animal species which we know of, and that includes insects and things like that. And there's the genus and the species name. The blue crab originated along the Atlantic coast, and that's still where they're mostly located. They can be found infrequently in other parts of the world, but as you see this yellow line here, that's the main location along that Atlantic coast of North South America and even into the Gulf of Mexico here. Their habitat, and I guess the reason that they prefer to stay along that coast, is they prefer those shallow to a bit deeper salt water, and then they can also live in the grasses and the reefs that are near that shallow water. For the dissection process, I began by moving the legs. After removing them, I kind of realized that this was unnecessary as I was dealing mostly with the top, but you live and you learn, I guess. So to begin, the scissors were inserted here on the posterior end of the crab in order to cut the carapace, or carapace, however you say it, along this line, right above that eye line there, which you can see this little red dot is that eye. And I cut all the way around until that was loose enough to pull away. Except it couldn't quite be pulled away because there was still some connective tissue which kept it down to those internal organs, so I used the scalpel to remove some of that connective tissue. Once that was completely removed, there was still a little bit of leftover epidermis. You can see that here. It's covering up the gills, and there's a stomach under here, which you can't see because of the epidermis. And I removed that using forceps and a bit more of the scalpel. So before we dive more into some of that dissection, the blue crab will eat just about anything. Anything that's smaller than them for that matter. Clams, oysters, mussels, snails, sometimes dead fish, and sometimes even plants, which I found interesting, and smaller crabs. Their powerful claws are not only used to protect themselves against other predators, but they're used in order to eat their prey. As mentioned, they feed on clams, oysters, and things such as that, which have a hard shell, and so they use those hard claws to crush them before they can consume the organism which lives inside that shell. Interesting fact about the blue crab is that their mouth actually consists of 3 jaws, which you can kind of see in this picture here. This is that mouth, and it passes through all 3 jaws, and the food is crushed even more by that process. But interestingly enough, their 3 jaws don't do the same job at crushing the food as our mouth would do. So their stomach is actually specialized in a way that it digests the food further by bumping and grinding it down before the digestive juices finish the job. But even before that, the food makes its way through the mouth into this tiny little esophagus here, and I don't have that labeled because I was on the top side of the crab and I was never able to locate that, as it is underneath a little farther, and it is so small. But the stomach is pictured both here and here. This is the stomach before I opened it up, and this is after it has been opened up. Just as you might expect from the stomach, the food goes into the intestines, which can further gain some of the nutrients from it before it takes the rest and eliminates it as waste. So the intestine is located underneath the heart. It's really kind of hard to picture here, but the heart is right here, and you can see the intestine follows down here. And so the first half of the intestine will be right here underneath the heart, and the latter half actually stretches into the abdomen right here, which is usually closed but is pictured opened up here so that you can see everything. From there it passes all the way through further and is excreted out of the anus as the abdomen opens up, allowing it to do so. The respiratory system of the blue crab is neat because it allows crabs to respirate both on land and in water. Their gills are capable of retrieving both oxygen in the water and the oxygen in the air, which is pretty interesting. These sets of gills, 8 on each side of the heart. So they collect the oxygen, which then transfers that oxygenated blood straight into the heart, and then the heart can disperse that into the rest of the body. The circulatory system here, the heart is pictured right there. We already showed you where the gills were lining the heart, which feed the oxygenated blood into the heart. Blue crab and crabs like it, or I guess all crabs, have an open circulatory system, which just means that they don't use blood vessels in order to transfer blood from the heart to the rest of the body. I couldn't think of a better way to say it than our textbook from OpenStax did, so I will just quote directly, and it's: the blood is contained in connected chambers surrounding various organs rather than within individual blood vessels. So these blood chambers kind of surround those vital organs and feed blood into the organs via that open system rather than our closed system like mammals and humans are mammals. So yeah, as far as reproduction and development goes, it's really not an unexpected concept. They reproduce sexually. The sperm or egg is contained in a gonad, which is actually up and to the right and the left side of the heart. So there's 2 gonads for each crab. And that you can see this little thing here, that's the gonad in the dissection picture. So this gonad feeds either the sperm or the egg into, for males, the sperm goes into the penis and then flows into the gonopods, which are these string-like structures here. That's called a gonopod. And in the females, those eggs are sent into the gonophores, which are the female equivalent, and I do not have pictured here. So the mating position is shown here. They mate belly to belly, as you could expect, with the sexual organs being on that side for each of them. Interesting fact about crabs: females can only mate once in their life, because their only opportunity to mate is when the female has finished the final molt and is in her soft shell state. Males tends to stay with the female for the whole process of the egg development and even into the young stages of the offspring's life in order to protect them. So once that male gonopod has transferred into the female gonophore, the zygote develops in this orange spongy sac, as you can see pictured there on the belly of a female crab. And once the eggs are ready to hatch, they generally hatch on the rock or sand of the shallow ocean floor, which crabs tend to live on. Their life cycle is fairly interesting. They have these 5 stages pictured here. They spend the first month to month and a half in this zoa stage, and there are 7 or 8 different stages which look generally the same as this picture here. After that month to month and a half, they spend an additional 2 weeks in this megalopus stage before becoming a juvenile crab, and this juvenile state lasts for between 10 and 16 months before they become a full adult about 18 months after their egg has hatched. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about reproduction and development. So to conclude, here's some things that I couldn't really picture in my dissection images, as I am kind of a rookie in dissection and I made some mistakes, to say the least. But the heart is here, as seen earlier, with the intestine right below that. The gonad, which was hard to see in my dissection images, is right above the digestive gland, which was not pictured at all, which are in the same general location as the gills. Lastly, I forgot to include my Unit 5 table on here, which would have allowed me to add the invertebrate comparisons to the chordate, but I will be sure to include that in my final presentation with the chordate, so you can see the differences between the blue crab and the rabbit, which I dissected. And finally, here's my works cited. Again, I'd like to thank you for your help and allowing me to do my presentation this way. Have a great day.